Today, I want to show you some of the features regarding the data preparation and data manipulation tools of Tableau. This step is considered like the first step when you open Tableau and before jumping to the visualization part. So as long as you have the right relations between your sheets or tables, and you know which tables you are going to use, you can do this step easily, then move to the data visualization step. So what I'm going to present today is a data preparation step. So quickly, let's see for an example. I have this data set. All of these data sets are from the Tableau official site, the training section. So even after this training, you want to check the official Tableau training, you will find the exact same data sets. So I will start with this data set, some resolved incidents for the support team. We have here these 3 sheets. I just want to show you this sheet, for example. So I just opened an Excel file with 3 sheets. You can see here that Tableau read the sheet as it is in Excel with these first 2 rows, as you can see, like so, and then we have what looks like a matrix table between employee. We have here the employee number, and we have a date here representing Jan 1st, Feb 1st, and so on till December 1st. And these numbers represent the resolved incidents per each employee. So the data in this format, we cannot work with it this way, as we have to define the date dimension properly, and we should get rid of these 2 rows at the start to have the data structured properly for further analysis. So one direct, everybody can imagine how it looks in Excel. It's like a flights data summary, and I think we have like a merged cells here, and then this report was generated on Jan 1st, 16, and so on. Okay, I can disconnect and show you the how it looks in Excel. So here we go. So in Excel, it looks like you can. Okay, sorry, zoom. Can you all see now the Excel sheet?
I can.
Okay, perfect. So this is the Excel sheet with this data formatted like so. What we want to do is to get rid of these rows and start from the top left cell and try to get this date dimension from the matrix format to be included as a dimension in a column like the employee number. So I'm going to switch back to Tableau. They provided a very nice tool, it's the data interpreter. It's going to do this job for us. If we check this box, it will like format or detect the table within the sheet and just drop any other rows. Alternatively, we can do filters. We can filter out these 2 columns from here. If you can see this filter, we can add a filter. We can pick the column name that we want to filter out with, and just scroll down and exclude these 2. Okay, so this way we have this one, but You can see here this one should be considered as the header. So the filter is not gonna work. It can work in some times when Tableau detected the header row correctly, or when you have these redundant rows inside the table, just implemented inside the table, inserted inside the table. So our best solution here is to use the data interpreter to interpret the data and just filter or detect the table. The next step is to get our data in the right format. As I presented last week, we have can like categorize any column in one of either two categories. It should be a dimension, like the employee number or the date, or it should be a measure. In our case, is the resolved incidents. So I just want to have a column representing the date, where we have, like, for each employee, we have the date in a separate row, and then we have only one column representing the number of resolved incidents. This, I think, who is familiar with Excel, this is the pivot functionality. So simply you can select in the columns that you want to include in your pivot. Here I just selected the first one and hold shift and select the last one and right click and pivot, and that's it. We have the employee number and the date and the number of resolved incidents. You can see here that the column names were changed to the default pivot field name and pivot field value. We can rename it by double clicking here and name it date, and the value is the incidents. Just like so. So now we can see that for each employee, we have the date dimension and we have the number of incidents. There is one step left, but let me just now jump to our first sheet to see what we can do with the current data. So I just click the sheet number one. We have now three columns, date, employee, and we have the incidents here as a measure. So if I just double click the employee, we have the employee numbers, and just drag the incidents, some of incidents to the column, and can sort. We can see now we have the total number of resolved incidents per employee, but we did not use the date dimension. So if I try to drag this date dimension to the rows shelf, we can see here that it added the date as a string, as it is like an employee number or employee name. It didn't detect the date as a date dimension. This is because that we had to change the data type here from a string. Just click here and change it to date or date time. In our case, it's date, and we have to remove it and add it again. So now it was detected as a date. We can drill down with year, quarter, and month. And ideally, this step should be done here. After doing your pivot, you should change it or make sure that all the data types are adjusted correctly. Also, there is another feature with to manipulate data. You can split a column. So in our case, if you imagine that employees B dash, E dash, and C dash, that B or C, that letter may represent like a department or a certain specialty. So you can like split this column into two columns using the split. Here I can undo. So just here, click that one and split. And there's another functionality for custom splitting. You can specify the separator if you want to split with dash or comma or whatever, or by space or whatever, based on the case. And you can like select if you want just to split off the first occurrence or the last or all occurrences. So in our case, if I split using the dash and select all, it will do the exact same thing. If we have like multiple dashes, so it will split the employee name to different columns. If I go back here to my sheet, I can, like, if I want it, remove the employee and use this split. We'll see that we have now the number of resolved incidents per department. If we like name it as department, we can here sort it. So, okay. So this could be considered as the main feature or main functionalities of working with data. You can change data type, you can pivot, you can unpivot, you can split column, even you can merge two different columns, but we will see it in a later session. Now we can go on to the next subject of today's session, which is relationships. I think people with the IT background will be familiar with this part. We'll discuss the tables and relations, and we'll try to pass fast through it and just provide people with no background with the needed basics to understand the tables and relations. But till now, let's make a stop and ask if anyone has any questions.
Can the data be unpivoted?
In some cases, yeah, we can do it, but in this particular data set, it's hard to do so. And ideally, as you can see, we can like retrieve the default or the view that we have that we worked with from this rows and column format. So if I put the employee here in the rows and put the date again, like so, and use the month, and just put the incidence here. Now we have the matrix format that we started from, right?
I see.
Yeah, okay. So any other questions? Okay. So moving to the next subject today is relationships. So you can see now the simple Excel sheet where we have two tables. So for a very, very simple case, if you have like a company with different departments and employees, let's delete that one. So if you have a list of employees like so, you can like identify each employee with the number 1, 2, 3, 4, John, Peter, Sarah, and Mike. And you have like these three departments: customer service, HR, and IT. And you wanted to link each employee to his department. What we do is like we link using IDs. So you simply to construct the relation between the employee and the department, you add to the employees list, you add this column representing the department ID. Department number, and just use the corresponding department number for each employee. So if we assume that John is working in customer service, so we'll put number 1 here. Peter and Sarah both working in the HR, so put 2, and Mike, the only guy in the IT department. So this way, you can like have this relation constructed, and anytime you wanted to know at which department or the name of the department where Peter is working, you use this ID and look up at this ID in the other table then you know that he's working the HR. Simply, if you moved from one department to another, just you have to update this number from 1 to 2. So now Peter is working as customer service and so on. In database, in database, these columns or relations, you can name it. So the employee number is the primary identifier for the employee, so it's the primary key, and the department number for the department is the primary key representing each department, and using this primary key in another table to construct the relation or to establish the relation. This column and this other table will be named as a foreign key. So to work with both of these tables, you have to establish the link between both of these tables using the department number from each table. This is quickly how the idea of primary key, like employee number or department number in its table, in its own table, and the foreign key where we use a primary key to identify or to establish a relation. So if anyone has any difficulty in getting this, you can repeat it again or try to explain it in another way. Is it clear for everyone? Any questions? Okay, good. So let's move to a simple use case. Here we have more complicated situation where this database represents a convenience store. The data actually are some customer data. We have customer table, Doug and Sarah. Each customer do some transactions. So for a transaction, we have the transaction date. A transaction represents sales operation. So for each transaction, we have some details representing what actually this customer bought from the store. From the other side, we have the category table. We categorized the products into categories. So we have the product table. This is actually the products that we are selling in the store. And we categorize these products into 4 categories. So water has the category number 1, which is beverage. And juice as well. Magazine is categorized as reading material. And we have pencil as stationery and so on. So here I'm using the category ID as a foreign key to relate me or link me to the category table. So from the relation of these 2 tables, I can determine what is the product name and its corresponding category name. And from this one, I can detect the customers and which transactions they did. And this table in the middle, it contains the relation from the product table and transaction table, where we have for each transaction, we have some product sold with certain quantities. So for each transaction, here we have the transaction ID number 1. It consists of 2 operations. We have here the product number 3, magazine, quantity sold 2, and product number 1, which is the water, quantity sold 1, and transaction number 1. If you want to know which customer has done this transaction, we go back with transaction ID to transaction ID number 1. We now know the customer related to this transaction ID, which is customer number 1. His name is Doug. Okay. Is it clear for everyone how the relation is established and how to traverse the different tables? Any questions so far?
I think we're good.
Okay, so let's move back to Tableau. So in Tableau, I'm just going to open up a new Tableau window. And again, I have here, can click this one to go back to the main screen, and think, yeah, have the convenience store dataset where we have these sheets. Let me show you the dataset from Google Sheets. So here we go. We have the exact same tables that I displayed to you. Every table is represented in a different sheet. So we have the customer ID, customer name. We have for the category sheet, we have the category ID and category name, the products as well. We have the products. For each product, we have unit price, unit cost, and its category. And then we have the transaction ID, customer ID, transaction date, and we have the transaction details. So for each transaction, we know we can determine which products and number of quantities sold for each one. So people who are working with database can imagine each one of these sheets as a separate database table. So switching back to Tableau. Okay. So now let's construct the or establish the relations as we described. So we have the transaction details. This is the lowest level of details in our data set. Start with it. Now we have its table. Now this transaction detail was related to transaction from one side. So while I am dragging the transaction here, it's detecting the relation. How it detected the relation, you can see if we click this link, because both of the tables, they have the transaction ID column named transaction ID. So by default, it detected that there is a relation between these two tables and selected it. In any case, if it's not the case that you have the same column ID, you can, like here from the drop down, select from each side of the relation the ID that you want to establish your relation with. Okay. Then we related the transaction details with the product as well. So again, it's because the transaction detail, it contains a product ID. So established the link to the product and again detected the relation. Then for the category, I think we should relate it to the product ID. And if by mistake you like put it here, it will show like this icon representing that it cannot find, you cannot automatically detect how to match the fields. So you can move it to be linked to other ones. So move it to product. So now it can see the category for both of the tables. And finally, the customer to the relation. Yeah, and link it as customer ID. So very simple task that just dragging all the sheets and make sure that the relation is established. Now move to the sheets to like see what we got here. So as you can see, we have the tables view. We have each one of our 5 tables listed this way. If you open it, you have like 2 categories. As I said, in blue, you have the dimensions and the measures in green, and it's the same for each table. So now when you have these tables linked all together, we can like have some like analysis. We can make some analysis. We can like see what is the best selling product. So we just want to answer this question. We just want to see the product name and the quantity. sold. So the quantities here from the transaction detail and the product name is here at the product table. So you can put the product name here and drag the quantity sold here and sort it. So the best selling product is a water, and we have the pencil and pen, never been sold before. But the important thing to see here is that this one is search. If you search here for product, you will find two product IDs. One related to the product ID of the product table, which is here representing the primary key of the product table, and the other one where the product ID is representing the foreign key at the transaction details table. And you can imagine if I drag the transaction details product ID to the view, what will happen? Did you notice what happened? We lose the last two categories that never been sold, the pen and pencil. Let me undo it. So the pen and the pencil, they were not listed in the transaction details as was not sold before. So using the ID from the foreign key, or when it is a foreign key, not primary key, will cause some data loss in our case. While if I drag the ID here, it's still there. So this is how it works. It matters from where you drag your column. So product ID here is different than that one. Everyone representing the set of values that already there. So this is like an important thing to watch out for. Let's see, question, how do you know which variable goes to row and column? Okay. It depends on how you want to construct your visualization. Simply, you have this icon where you can transpose your view. So if I click it, simply it will move what is in the rows shelf to the column and put rows in the column, and you have this view like so. So it depends how you want your view to be done. But let's imagine that we will remove everything and we have the questions best-selling product. Okay, so best-selling is like the product that was sold the most, or been like have the maximum number of quantities sold. So you simply want to have you want to answer your question. You can have it in a table, in a bar chart, pie chart, whatever. You can decide which visualization to use from this one or from the marks here. We'll go in depth next session, the visualization. But for now, simply you can like select the product name and the quantity sold, and while this window is opened, you can select any one of these things. So you can put it in a table like so. Another sheet can, or we can, even while doing so, we can make it bar chart, heat map, pie chart, and so on. But you know, for each business case or for each question, you should be able to select the best visualization that show or answer your question. But for the default behavior, if you like drag the quantity and put it in the column, it will like change this marks from table or text, like so. See here, this icon text, it will detect it and it will suggest to have it in bars like so. Is this you got the answer that you were looking for, Andre?
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You did. Yeah.
Okay. So we can have like a different question. So as we have here the unit cost and unit price, we can like answer another question. Which product has the maximum or the best or the maximum profit per unit? So this is like the difference between the unit price and unit cost. So this represents the profit for each unit sold. So to answer this question, you can like have a calculation. You can drop down this one and create a calculation field. What is a calculation field? It's a field that will be added to your data pane here, and you decide how to like construct this calculation. In our case, I want to have the expression of the unit price, drag it like so, hit minus unit cost, and name it like profit per unit. So for each unit sold, your profit will be the difference between the price and the cost. Line. Okay, so now we have this new column added to our data set, and we go back here, we should be able to find it on the the product table, profit per unit here. Okay, let's go back. So to answer which product has the maximum profit per unit, we just can type the product name and profit per unit, and can select the view here. And for the best experience, we can sort, and clicking this icon, it will display even the quantity, the profit for each one. So for the book, we have the 3.25 as a profit for each unit of goods sold. If we want to know the details of this calculation, we can change the view to table, and we can just double click the unit price, double click the unit cost. So from our data set, we have this unit price as input and unit cost as input, and we just subtract the unit cost from the unit price to have the profit per unit, and we now can answer our question that the book product has the maximum profit per each unit sold. Okay, any questions so far?
I have one. What if you only wanted to show the top one? You only wanted to show book.
Yeah, there is a way to do so. You can like do a filter here, which put the only maximum or the minimum or whatever. There is a rank function, but I don't want to like get into the functions right now. Just want to keep us like the first level familiar with the tool and columns and so on, but we will do it, I think, in the last session. We will explore some of the functions that is available in your calculation. Simply from the calculation here, you can like see a very nice list of functions, logical functions, number, string, and so on. Should have function that can provide you with the rank like so you can use it, but just I will do it in another session to like be able to present all the information related to the data preparation and so on. Okay, so moving to the next question, we can like have question. Yeah, we can ask another question, the product that has the maximum profit. So this time we want to like have the number that represents the total profit for each unit, for each product. So what we want to do is to multiply the profit per unit with the number of quantities sold. So we can again do another calculation, total profit and get the profit per unit as price and quantity sold, hit apply, and you should now have the product name and the total profit. And you can see here as that calculation, it depends on two columns from two different tables, one from the unit profit per unit that is in the product, and the other one, the transaction detail. When I created this calculation, it's down there in the bottom of the pane. This is how it like detect the fields that this calculation depends on. So if both of the columns rely on the same table, you will have your calculation under this table, else it will be down there. So again, doing the exact same thing, you can have the maximum profit, again, displaying the profit. So this one representing the profit per unit multiplied by the number of units sold. We can even here get or roll up to the category level. So here you remember we have for each product we have category. So putting this category as higher level than the product name, we can have this one. So we can decide for each category that giving us the maximum profit. You can have this product name drop there, and you can answer another question, or you can construct a hierarchy. What is a hierarchy? It is relating the category name to a product name, and it will be like give you the ability to drill down the view. How to do a hierarchy? Just decide the parent and the child. So in our case, the parent is the category name and the child is the product name. So dragging the product name over here or the category name, it will create a hierarchy. So let's rename it product. Okay. And we have our hierarchy here as product hierarchy. And you can see here as it detected that the category name now is part of the hierarchy. So you can sort now to have the reading material contributing the most to the store profit. And if you want to drill down to details, just hit the plus sign. You have your details for each product under the category. Also, you can do some numerical analysis. You can change this one to be a table, and you can add from the analysis, you can add subtotal. Add whole subtotal. So it will give you like subtotal for each one. You can also add show row or show column grand total. It will show you grand total, and this way you can do some numerical for work with the numbers. The same, we can apply the same concept even to the customer. You can like see for each customer that sold the most number of items. So just double click the quantity sold. You can put it here like so, and so Doug has 6 items, Sarah 3, and we have this none. We have missing data. We can like double click, right click here and exclude it from the view. It will be excluded here as a filter. You can also remove it from the you can remove it as well from the data itself. You can remove it from the data step, data preparation step, or from the view step like we had here. If you remove it here like so, exclude it, still in your data set, but we just like hide it from the view. else, if you remove it from or filter it out from your data source, it will not be in the data set at all. Okay, so just let me check here if I have anything missing. Okay. Just you can like use this data set to drill down the way you want. So we can know for these or know some details about the products. So if you simply drag the product name or even the product hierarchy and put it here, you can have the drill down of the 6 items that were sold to do. You can click the plus sign here to drill down to know the products that sold to him. And so now I'm displaying the measured quantity sold. It can like display another measure, can display the total profit. So you can determine which customer is given or had the most is the most profitable customer to our store. Just remove this drill down. So this is the profit that comes from each customer displayed here, and so on. Is it clear for everyone how to like have relations or different relations table in tables and to link these tables or relations together and work with the columns from each table and to make sure that you use, like in product case, use the column representing the primary key, not the foreign key. Also, we did some calculations here from this menu, calculated field. This calculated field just can, as we see here, you can drag and drop the columns you want. And in case if you have like a very long list of columns, you can write the column name, it will auto-complete it, so you can profit and it will display or suggest some columns multiplied by the quantity, so like so. Okay, so let's see if there is no questions. Any questions so far? Okay. Yeah, you have one.
I think all my questions will have to come in a later lesson.
Sorry.
No problem. Like one of the questions I'm trying to figure out right now is how do I get total sales for the current month?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, but it depends if you have a column for months, and I think we have one. We have the transaction. We have the transaction date. Okay, so simply you can add this one to your view. If you want to break each or break this bar into different bars representing the month, so you will put the transaction date in the columns shelf. So this way you drill down to months. So it turned out to be a good question. so now you have this nice view of the drill down. Even I prefer to remove the bills here to see. Now you have the drill down per month. So for each month you have that one. And if you wanted to make it again as a bar chart, just move the total here to the columns. So it will do the automatic thing to transfer it to that view. Okay?
Okay.
I think we used most of the columns here. We used the category, we used the customer name, we used the product, we used now the transaction date as well, and the quantity. We traversed almost all the columns. So it's simply it's like you have like a plain white sheet paper, and you want, as they do it here, drop fields here, and you have now the view. So you decide how you want to have your rows represent. So I want every row or each row to represent a customer. So simply drag customer name and put in the row. So now we have in each row a customer. What do you want your columns to represent? I want to represent the product name. So just drag the product name here to the columns, and now we have the matrix. So now just ask a question. What is the measurement that you want to see? Do you want to see the number of quantity sold? Yes. So you can double click and it will put it here, or you can drag the quantity and put it in the table. So now you have this one. Also, you can, if you double click the quantity and double click the profit per unit, it's gonna like decide or will add the measures that you added. So for each intersection here between the customer and the product, you will have 2 cells. Okay, every cell representing a measure, and this cell is represented here in this cell, the measure names. If you move the measure name to the columns, you can expect these 2 measures to come here under the product name, like so. Okay. So I advise everyone to be familiar with the tool. You just install it, download and install it, and just pick I will publish the data set on the channel. Pick any data set and play around with the columns and rows and so on. Just try different things here. We will go through the visualization part next session. But for now, familiarize yourself with the concept of measurement and dimension and relations. Also, you have some nice tools here to customize the data pane as per your preference. So let me show a quick, some quick features here. You can personally, I worked with data set with like hundreds of columns. So you will have like a very long list here of columns, and most of these columns were not relevant to my analysis. So I can like select any column here and hide it from the view. Right click and where is it? Hide. Can hide it, so you can like keep only the columns that you want to use. If you want to see them again, show hidden fields and right click and click on hide. You can rename any field. So this one, the product hierarchy, can select it and click F2 and rename it. Even you can rename the columns that comes from your data set, from your tables. So you can like make this one product underscore ID or whatever. Sometimes the column name is displayed here in your sheet as product name. So if you want to customize the name that is displayed here, you can rename the column so we'll have different label displayed here. You can create the hierarchy, as I said. You can create even folders, create the group by folder, and create a new folder. So here, right click, yeah, create folder. So you can put products, or you can create some calculations as we said, and group them by folder. Can change the data type, as we have seen with the table, with the date. It's very important and very common issue where you populate the data from your data source. If it's like a text file or Excel or PDF or even database table, sometimes Tableau is not able to detect the date as a date. As you know, we have like tens of date formats. You can have like month as a number or as a string, or short name, long name, and so on. I think that Tableau is good in detecting the dates, but sometimes if it did not detect your date, you can go and change the data type to make it date, or even you can work with some complex, do some complex data formatting to make it or construct your date. I'll make sure to show you this in the next section as well when we go through the functions. For now, I think we covered most of the today's session items. I have another thing to cover is the PDF files. So we have 5 minutes left. 5 minutes left. Let's try it. How Tableau is working with the PDFs. So simply, I will just grab. Yeah, here we go. So if you can see here, I have that PDF representing Amazon stock. Again, all these data from Tableau official site, where they publish some training data and some interesting data sets. Anyway, this is a PDF file that we wanted Tableau to get the data from this PDF and get it in Tableau. So simply, I will open a new window here for Tableau. And go to the home and select PDF. It will filter PDFs. It will ask me the first question if I want to like load all pages or single page. You can give it a page that contains the table that you are interested in, or in our case, the table is spanning multiple pages. So I think from page 2 to 8. Hit OK. It will open the PDF and display the tables like so. So in our case, we want all of these tables. They not like have that relation. No, in this case, we want to union all the fields or all the tables together to be one big table. But again, as you see here, we have this columns detected. As you can see here, so I will use again the data interpreter, and good, it detected correctly the columns, names, headers, and we have the data, and the date here is not date, it's a string, so we can make it as a date, like so. And now we can start by putting these tables, not like beside this table, we can put it over it, so it will have this union label. So this way it will union my table. But remember that the second page or the next page, it has some headers as well. So you should like work or do some effort in getting the extra rows away from your data. So if we see here the date, we might have some columns here. No, I think it did it well, surprisingly. We have all the columns correctly. Okay, just we can add them now one by one.
Are you working on a second screen?
Select all. Oh, sorry. Which one are you saying now?
I see the Amazon PDF.
Oh my God. Sorry. It's so confusing. Okay. Okay. I'm
There
going
we
to
go.
repeat it again. Okay. So simply I opened a PDF file. Here I have the range. I selected the range from 2 to 8. Okay. Can select all pages, but anyway, I know exactly where the table that I'm interested in. So open gave me all of the pages here. You can see it now, right?
Sure can.
So now I will drag the first table. You can see here the table, but it didn't detect the header. So you can use the data interpreter, and it's smart enough to detect my headers here. And I can work to change the date from string to date. That's the best option for analysis. And instead of now we have the table, it spans the 8 or the 7 pages. So I just want to union the data from all of these tables together in one table. This way I can drag them one by one, like so. So it will be union, like you can see here. And even you can select holding shift and add all of them at once. So now you have your data. It was smart enough even to add a column for you representing the from each table this row came from. So this table name, page 5, table 1. So rows here representing that one, and so on. So even you can, in your analysis, you can see it page by page, but if you don't want it, you can remove or hide this column if you don't want to use it. And set the table, the date again as date, and start working. Okay. And this is the last thing that I wanted to show you today. Please let me know if you have any questions, and you can ask now. I think we can take the extra 4 minutes for any questions, or you can reach me out through the channel or even privately. Okay. Okay. Thank you all for attending today's session, and see you next week.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.